I've been at Laurelville High School this is year 10 for me, and I remember when I first came here, Mayor Al called me just to welcome me to the community, and his famous words, and I learned after that was he's famous, noted for, call me if you need anything, call me if you need anything. He was always willing to support in anything we did. He followed the progression of the school as far as achievement with testing and things like that. He'd call no matter how we fared in the public's eye as far as those letter grades or accountability. He'd always call and say, congratulations. Invited us to council meetings a few times just to always acknowledge and support what was going on in the school. Not just academically, but also it wasn't unusual to see him on the sidelines at our football games, sitting in the stands at our baseball games. I remember when the community got ready to do the water tower, he called. He wanted an emblem of a tiger. He wanted that tiger on the water tower. Very vibrant in the community. He made such a great impact on us, and very down to earth, kind man, generous man, always willing to help.
Also, he started with the Knights of Columbus way back in 1969, became a Grand Knight, but we started our fundraisers with the Red Beans and Rice for the council, and he took charge of that. And we've been having that for 30-something years, every year, annual event.
My memories of Al is, I grew up, at Lake Dotrieve on a sugarcane farm. My dad and my uncle had a farm, and Al was the consultant. We bought herbicide, pesticides from him, and I just always remember him coming around the farm, and I know he had a big impact on the farmers around here. Not just sugarcane, but other varieties of crops. I sit as Grand Knight now, but really I'm in the council, because of Al and because of his dad, Al Broussard Sr. They were the ones that, they recruited me.
Well, I guess I could talk about Al's other side, as a duck hunter. I'll never forget when his dad didn't hunt, he just worked all the time, And one day his dad says, Al must have been maybe 13, 14, he was real young. He said, Clark, Al really would like to go hunt. He said, would you take him? I said, I'd be glad to take him. So I picked him up that morning. Well, he was all smiles, and he was probably about 14 years old, We made a hunt. And, Al never did quit. He reminded me of that hunt. Every now and then he'd tell me, he'd see me and he'd say, you remember when you made the hunt? He said, you just followed me with duck hunting. and he was a great guy, and his dad was also.
I know you did a lot with the Boy Scouts, helping them get their awards and their achievements. And he liked sailing, so he would bring some of them if they needed to earn a badge for sailing or whatnot. Al was more involved with the Boy Scouts as Al Broussard, not as the Knights of Columbus, or it was him personally, that he was involved with.
He wasn't just the mayor of Laurelville. He had an impact on many different people in many different aspects, and what amazed me about him was that he was never unreachable. He was always willing to help in any kind of way, not as in the capacity of a mayor, just as a good-natured, kind person who cared about others.
The New Acadia project really got off the ground around May of 2013. I had presented to the Famille Beausoleil, the Broussard Family Association, an idea for a project, and that is to find the original settlements and campsites, if you will, and grave sites of the Acadians who arrived in South Louisiana, around here, around the Foss Point area it was called, in 1765. Al got involved in the project. I'm not sure exactly when, but it seemed natural for him to be involved in it because all of the historical evidence indicates that New Acadia, the settlements and the 1765 burials, are located somewhere around present-day Laurelville. And so we had approached Mayor Al to get involved and to be aware of the project, and he really took it from there. He became our strongest advocate for the New Acadia project. Al had some great ideas for fundraising, and that is he went to the Iberia Parish Council and asked for a grant to support the New Acadia project. And he presented the project and argued that the New Acadia project has relevance to Iberia Parish's cultural economy. So he petitioned and was successful, and we received $50,000 was approved from the Iberia Parish Council. I think Mayor Al was also interested in another issue, another side of the New Acadia project. Besides the cultural economy, he would like to see the colony of New Acadia found and the burial places found so that he could say a prayer at the grave of his ancestor. I mean, Al worked with us in the field occasionally. He had some great ideas about sites that we could go look at, so he would come and say he'd spoken to a landowner that we can get onto the property to do a survey to look for an archaeological site. We'd go over the maps on the hood of a car. We'd look at the different maps and see which properties we could get onto. And he sort of took the crew under his wing. I had 2 student assistants who were working in the field, and I was in and out of the field that summer, visiting with them, making sure that they got started and were working. And he would come out and bring them a cold drink on occasion, and also bring them insect repellent, or little things like that. And it made a big difference, to know that someone was watching out for them.
Al's involvement with CCA. Back in September 2006, we started a new chapter in the state, the Sugar Chapter. And Al was a founding member of the Sugar Chapter. He was at that very first meeting we had. Some of the projects that Al was involved in with the Coastal Conservation Association includes the David Ortamar Reef down at Sycamore Point. He saw that we needed more fishing reefs out at the point, especially areas that he loved to fish and areas that you could actually get to by kayakers. He saw that that was very important for our youth. He was real big on the youth. We would host 4-H events once a year through the Coastal Conservation Association. And his job was to teach the kids different rigging techniques, different fishing poles. He was always into showing kids how to do things. He was a really close friend of ours. We would call him Dad on the chapter, in the chapter, because he was the oldest guy there, but he would always hang with the young guys. Whatever we did, if we went on a fishing trip, he was there. If we needed anything for the banquet, he was there to help set up. He donated trips for us, hunting trips, fishing trips, cooking events. He loved to cook. He was most famous for his Cajun luau and his camp potato recipe. We always had to have that when we did cookouts. You never saw him without a smile on his face. It was a blessing to have Al on that committee. CCA lost a great man, a great volunteer. He was a member who will be sorely missed, and not a day goes by where we don't think about him, and we'll never forget his yellow Crocs. Al stood out at CCA functions. If no one knew his name, they knew the guy with the yellow Crocs, and you knew who you were talking about.
I first met Al Broussard in 1984 when he, as a member of the Board of Aldermen of the Village of Laurelville, agreed to retain my services as the attorney for the village. I grew up with Al Broussard in the government of the Village of Laurelville. I learned a great deal from him on how to help people and be a public servant. As best I can explain, a Board of Aldermen in the village did not have a district. When you ran for office, you ran for the entire village. As a consequence, I got the understanding and feeling with Al Broussard that as an alderman, he didn't represent a few individual voters. He represented the entire village, and they were not voters. They were his family and friends. When the time came for his opportunity to become mayor, it was a striking continuation of what he did as an alderman. But most importantly, he took a part-time job as a mayor of a small village and turned it into a full-time devotion. He worked tirelessly. Whenever someone had a concern, he didn't send the public work director out there. Why? Because he was the public work director. He went himself. Didn't matter if it was pouring down rain to see if that drain pipe was stopped up or not. I remember seeing many a time with his pair of white boots on, walking the mud, checking on why this water was not flowing. His greatest achievement, and I think the village will remember him by as his public works, was when it was necessary to revamp the sewer district or sewer system of the village. What most people don't realize is that the village of Laurelville owned its own water system. It was operated by the provider, in this case Lawco, but they owned it. And when the system started going down, it had to be repaired. And Al, together with the other members of the board, made the hard decision of not repairing the system, but rather extending a pipeline nearly 9 miles from Lawco's nearest connection to the village of Laurelville. It took Al almost 2.5, 3 years to get the funding necessary through the state of Louisiana to finance this pipeline at an interest rate that could be affordable to the village. In due course, the village was able to acquire this pumping station site to make the project work. In addition to that, he also was able to get the parish council to advance some money to put fire hydrants along this way, which helped tremendously in the fire protection. Al Broussard was a wonderful human being, and I'm proud to say he was my friend. He'll always be missed.